Okay, we're loading up honey supers that have been robbed out to go to the cooler. Nathan and Dave wrapped them up nicely. They've already been robbed out. They're clean. I like my supers to go into the cooler clean for the winter. I don't know how many pallets of supers we got. We got quite a few. We're about halfway through the process of getting them robbed out and cleaned up and sent to the cooler. So we're getting all the supers robbed out by the bees, get them nice and dry before we put them away for the winter in the cooler space we rent up in Clayton. I think they come out in the spring much nicer if they go in to winter storage dry and not all sticky, less mildew and stuff like that. I don't do this at the shop because I don't need a robbing frenzy going on in an area where the public is coming and going, so we move them into specific bee yards for getting this done. I had a bee yard I'd been using most of the summer, and they're so plugged out I had to put the trailer somewhere else. I can't afford to let those bees get any fuller. And I got 2 bee yards within striking distance of this. This is my property where I live. And we have 1 bee yard here and another one about a half a mile away. And they'll have this trailer cleaned out in probably 2 days pretty well. There isn't any honey flow right now. I think the bees actually have scout bees sitting here waiting for the trailer to arrive, because when it gets here in 10 minutes flat, there's a robbing frenzy going on. It doesn't take long. We're cycling this trailer through this yard every few days until we get all our supers dried out. We still got quite a few, so it might take a couple weeks. But this yard of bees just got its last mite treatment. That's why they still have those 1.25 inch rims on every colony. The Apiguard treatments do best with some space between the lid and the top bars. It also helps hold the extra bees from taking the supers off and knocking them back down to a single. They're just stuffed with bees. So that works for that too. Now, the bee numbers will still continue to diminish as some of those summer bees die off. And as you can see, we're feeding some of them. Anything that has a bucket turned over is being fed, and anything that has a bucket upright is not being fed. They'll all get fed at some point, but right now we got to be careful not to overfeed the ones that are heavy. I don't want the brood nest to block out, so there's, I want the queen to have a lot of space to rear brood right now for the next month or so. That syrup is thin syrup. It's 1.5 parts water to 1 part sugar, so it's very stimulative. It stimulates brood rearing, creates hygienic behavior. That thin syrup is really good right now this time of year. I talk about that from time to time in some of my videos. And as we get later in the season and closer to October, we'll pay more attention to the weight. As the brood nest begins to shrink, I want to kind of backfill any extra space with syrup. If we get into October and they're still not heavy enough for winter, we'll start thickening the syrup up, probably 1 to 1 and something like that. These bees are in really good shape. Pollen's starting to come in. The goldenrod and helianthus is starting to bloom. You can see a little goldenrod along the side of the yard here. If the camera will pick it up. So between that thin syrup and the pollen coming in, these colonies are brooding nicely. Now, this yard didn't get anything fed. These bees were quite heavy down in the bottom box. This was one of those unique yards this year that I gave a deep box to work on in late spring for a while until the sourwood started. Then we shook the bees out of the second deep and made them a single again and gave them a box of medium foundation without any queen excluder. And it actually went pretty good. For the most part, they drew out that medium box, even though they weren't super strong colonies. And I think because it was foundation above the brood nest, it encouraged them to put a little more food down in the bottom box, and they really didn't need food when we were here last time, but by next time they may need some. They'll have eaten through some of those stores because they're starting to brood up with the pollen coming in. This is only 40 colonies. My yard numbers are slowly getting smaller. There was a time when every yard I had 64 colonies in it, and Now some of them have 48, and this one just has 40. I actually think the bees do better in these smaller yards. Well, I don't think, I know they do. It's just kind of a no-brainer, really. And when there's a major honey flow going on, it really doesn't matter. This yard would probably take 100 when the sourwood's doing really well and in full bloom or during the spring. It's in the off times that I think it's more important not to have too many bees in a location. I kind of shoot for the 32 to 40 if I have a preference. I think most of them average 40 these days. And it's when the pickings are slim that those smaller numbers are more important. Okay, here, say cheese.
Cheese.
Say beekeeper.
Beekeeper. Right?
Beekeeper, yeah.
That's right. That does make a smile. Beekeeper at the rib.
Yeah. We just had lunch. Everybody's lazy. I gotta get them to working again. Jesse's filling the buckets up with smoke because the bees are in a robbing mood. Fill the bucket up with smoke, and then as you fill the syrup up with the nozzle, the smoke comes out, and that smoke will keep the bees from going down the hole until you're done filling the bucket. A little trick that helps. If you don't do something, you'll have a dozen bees in there by the time you're done filling the bucket. We're harvesting queens today, and we're harvesting every other one. In other words, we'll collect a queen, and then we'll leave the next one queen right, and we'll take the assets out of the one that we collected the queen from and add it to the one that still has a queen. It's one of our ways for getting our little queen mating nucs big enough to make it through the winter. So I have a friend that's purchasing some queens from me today, so this will be the last time we sell queens this season. Probably the last time we collect queens also. Those are small nucs. They've only got one, possibly 2 frames of brood in them. And I think the combination of the assets from the one we're collecting the queen from will be enough to get the other ones through the winter okay. And of course, if they're too small, we'll put them over double screen boards over a strong colony for the winter. We still got a lot of nucs in this location to deal with. And we are no longer making nucs. We are just harvesting queens and getting the nucs we got ready for winter.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and test this out. Don't touch the fence.
No.
Show you what's going
Turn the
on.
dial
Oh, you
on.
gotta turn it on. Oh man, yeah.
Pegged out.
That's your battery level. And there it goes to full.
And we know that this fence is on because John's fixing to touch it.
We do have a tester in all of our toolkits there. In a pinch, you can use a wet blade of grass. Or you can just grab it.
Alright, we're done with the fence here. We're going to go ahead and head back. Actually going to be a nice yard here.
It's a good looking yard.
It is.
Yeah. Alright, let's take it to the warehouse.
All right, Jesse and I get to have fun tonight moving bees. We have 3 yards of bees we got to move tonight to get them out of harm's way. This particular yard has some sweet corn growing real close, and it's going to start tasseling very soon. I think they're going to start their spray schedule on that tomorrow morning. And sweet corn is really bad when they're spraying it like that. The bees go after the pollen during a dearth because it's really the only pollen available to them. There's also a lot of field corn in this vicinity too, more field corn actually than sweet corn. And we never have any issues at all with field corn. I've just never had a problem. I know people complain about it, but my experience has been no problem. But boy, that sweet corn is sure messy. It's kind of insidious. It kind of kills your bee slowly. Anyway, right back here is a field of field corn, and we don't have any problem with that. Right around the corner to the right, though, is that sweet corn that's getting ready to tassel. I know the farmer. He's a friend. We communicate. He lets me know when things are going to happen, and I knew this yard was going to have to be moved months ago. We brought in just some little 5-frame nucs here a few months ago and built them up on the sourwood flow. And they're going to get moved to a yard that was sweet corn in the earlier part of the season, and it's over, so we can move these there now, get them out of harm's way here. And let's see, there's 2 other yards we have to move tonight. One is right next to a field of beans that are going to start to be sprayed tomorrow morning, literally 30 feet away. And so we got to get those out of there. And then we have another yard that is close to some cucumbers and eggplant that is about ready to start a spray schedule. And neither one of those are very attractive to bees in general, but because we're in a dearth right now, they will visit those flowers, so we'll have to get those out of the way too. So, sun's almost down, and we will get to it. It's warm out here. I'm sweating just thinking about it, Jesse. These colonies all have an 1.25-inch rim on them for apigard treatment. The rims are on, but we haven't done the treatment yet. We're going to do that probably tomorrow. I actually put the rims on right after we took the supers off because some of them were really full of bees and wanted to give them a little extra space for the bee bodies so they weren't too crammed in there.